Another episode of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm here with my friend Rob Kessler. Rob, how you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm doing all right, doing all right. And for those of you that don't know, Rob is actually the founder of a brand called Million Dollar Collar. It's an e-com brand. How long has the brand been around, Rob?
So I came up with the idea on my wedding day, and we've been selling since January 2016.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can understand why you came up with it on your wedding day, because I'm sure you went through the same thing that I did, trying to get all fitted and get ready for the wedding. So before we get into how you started the brand and all that good stuff and how you scaled it, let's go back a little bit. Let's go into your background. Were you always an entrepreneur growing up, or do you come from the corporate world and you had the idea and you took that direction? How did it all start?
No corporate world for me. I think I started probably when I was 12, 13 years old, cutting the grass. I just did it, and I wanted to make sure that I was like the best grass cutter around and get my neighbors to all pay me to cut their grass, because they would pay me about 2 or 3 times what my dad paid me. So,
Yeah.
I cut that grass like the world was watching, and I think that's kind of where my journey started. And I went to business school, got a marketing degree, but I've kind of always had my hand in something business wise. So yeah, I can't work for anybody else.
That is so funny that you bring that up. You're probably like at least the 5th person that I've had on here who has like started a successful business that started cutting their grass, for the neighbors and stuff like that, and then grew to a business, and either they sold it or they moved on to other different things. So you got the marketing degree. So right as you got the marketing degree, that's when you launched this was your first brand, the first e-com brand you launched?
No. So I came out of college. I ended up going to work for my dad, who's a jeweler, and I learned customer service like you wouldn't believe. And so I worked for him. That ended not great, which is why I know I can't work for anybody if I can't work for my own father.
Yeah.
So I went off. I got into real estate, which is really doing your own thing. I mean, I was with the biggest brokerage in the state, but I was really, you're really on your own in real estate. During that time, I started a screen printing and embroidery business called Nude Clothing. It was NEWD, stood for Nothing Else Will Do. And so it started out as a clothing brand, and then I was getting jacked around on screen printing. So I ended up meeting a guy, bought equipment, learned how to screen print, built $1 million screen printing business out of it. And so I just kind of followed what the customers were looking for and built that screen printing business. So I had an e-commerce store with my clothing line, Nude. And then that, parlayed into $1 Million Collar. I started that while I was doing the screen printing. So it's just kind of been one thing after another.
So that's a big jump, because it's in the apparel business, but it's 2 completely different niches. So I'm curious to see how it worked out. So for the screen printing business, what type of clients were you dealing with? Did you actually have a website for print on demand designs that you would come up with, or did you do the whole like local, like for sports teams and where people get their logos on their shirts for their, like, I don't know, their softball team and stuff like that locally?
Yeah, it was all local stuff. I had the website was more for my clothing company, which is Nude Clothing Company. And then I had the parallel company, Nude Custom Printing. But most of what I did was bars and restaurants and, smaller jobs, the jobs that the big shops didn't want to do. I actually started in my basement, so I didn't have room to do 1,000 shirts. But one thing I did was I priced everything all inclusive, because I hated it. It's like, all right, it's $2 to print a shirt. Well, it's $20 to set up a screen for each color and this and this. I just felt like I was nickel and dimed all the time. So mine was just an all-inclusive pricing, which Custom Ink ended up coming out and doing the same kind of thing with. But that was my niche, was all-inclusive pricing. I folded every single shirt individually. And the biggest thing that I did with that was I cut out the label, whatever shirt came in, and I originally started screen printing my own label on the inside, and then I got a heat transfer machine, and I pressed my name on the inside of every single shirt. So hundreds of thousands of shirts went out with my name all over them. So that was kind of its own built-in marketing, because I didn't do the same crappy 100% cotton shirts that everybody else did. I usually did a 50-50 shirt. People were like, man, this thing just feels really nice, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I want to be tied to that when you're wearing it. You're like, dude, this shirt's awesome. Where'd I get it from? So
that is one of those things that drive me absolutely insane when I go to like a concert or like an event or, something. And then you're like, yeah, man, I want to get some merch, like You know, the last time I went to see Metallica live, right? And I go in there and it's like those crappy, like Hanes, Gildan,
Yep.
you know, I understand you're trying to make
Gildan.
as much money as you can, but it's like, I don't even want to wear it, man. Like, I love the design, but the shirt just sucks. And it's like, you know, you look like a guy that works out. I work out too, you know, and I like my shirts to be fitted and to be comfortable and soft. And they just, I don't know, they just don't look right. So I'm so glad to hear that you actually did that. And that's probably why you were so successful at it right away.
Yeah, I avoided Gildan with like the plague. So I just made sure that I was just doing things a little bit differently. And ironically, the 50/50 shirts were a little bit less expensive, but I think some people didn't think that the ink took as well. But we were in the time of 2006 to 2010, Ed Hardy, like really gnarly designs. I was going for that worn in, beat up, like, you know, old school looking shirt. So I didn't want it to be like 3 layers of white ink on a black shirt. I would say, why don't we do this like light gray ink on a black shirt and kind of give it that vintagey feel? And customers just love that. And so the big success I had too selling was, you know, you go to a bar and you got $20. Does the bar want you to buy a t-shirt for that they paid $8 for out of that 20, or do they want you to buy like 3 beers? They make money selling beer. So I said, look, don't think of this as an income stream. Nobody's buying $20 bar shirts. Sell them for $5 and lose $3 and have 1,000 people walking around town with your cool bar design on it, something they're proud to have, as opposed to trying, who's buying the $20 bar shirt, you know? So I had one teeny tiny little bar. It was like 1,200 square feet. I think they sold 3,000 or 4,000 shirts a year. And it was the Brewer season. So we'd have a yellow and blue shirt, and it was Packers and we have a yellow, you know, green and gold shirt. And it was like, we just did stuff throughout the season that was timed right. And then their regulars come in, bought all their stuff for $5 a piece. It cost them $2 or $3, but you can't buy advertising like that. So shirts were everywhere. It was called the Monkey Bar, and they had a cool little design, and their shirts were freaking everywhere in town.
That's amazing. I never even thought about that, man. That's a marketing degree right there. That's genius right there. If you think about it, like, you know, sell it for nothing and then everybody's wearing your shirt around town. That is amazing. That is,
you know, the shirts that you love the most are the one that you earned, you know, the free shirt you got going to whatever. I got a hat because I chipped in on this thing, and I'm like, it's one of my favorite hats. Whereas I wore out in like 6 months. I was like, I can't even wear this thing anymore.
Yeah,
so
I have
the stuff you get for free. Yeah.
I think every dude has those like shirts just stacked away that we will not get rid of them no matter what. And we got them free, like you said, free somewhere at a band bar or something. That is so true. That is so true. That is so cool. So, all right, we moved from that. I'm assuming you sold the business at some point, correct?
Sold the business in 2015 to move to Los Angeles. My wife and I mean, we were, what most people saw was on cruise control. We had a duplex that we lived in for free. We had a commercial building that we had tenants that were paying our mortgage on that. So our business were operating for free. We had a boat. We had 2 cars. We could do anything we wanted. And we said, you know what? Time to make change. We sold everything. I took her to Los Angeles for her 30th birthday. We came home from that trip and she said, let's do it. And I said, fine. By when? She said, by my next birthday. So in less than a year, sold a business, sold a house, sold a boat, sold everything we had, moved across country, knew nobody, and started over completely.
So where did you go after that? East Coast?
We went to Los Angeles. Yeah, we went from Milwaukee to Los Angeles, spent 5.5 years there. My wife ended up becoming a stunt woman. She's a Hollywood stunt woman, super badass. I was working on $1 Million Collar. And so we just did that, made insane, because I just knew being in that environment, I was going to be around people I wanted to be around, like people, influential people. And if you look at my phone right now, most people's mouths would drop on the connections that I have. And that was because we gave up everything and put ourselves in the mix of, you know, the most business, the most creativity that was happening. And we just left there about 6 months ago, and we live in Atlanta now, but on to the next adventure.
How do you like Atlanta?
I'll tell you what, I love the space. I've got 5 acres. I just cut half the grass this morning. It took an hour and a half. I freaking love it. I own the house. We rented in Los Angeles. So we own this house. We're doing a ton of work to it. I'm getting to use my hands again, buying all new tools. I mean, we moved to LA and I gave everything to my brother-in-law because we lived in apartments and I didn't need any tool, and I didn't have any extra space. So
that is
it's
so
been
cool,
great.
man.
I love it.
You sound like me. You just pick up. I'm like, let's go. That's it. You know, I'm like, I could get rid of everything right now and pick up and go if I wanted to, which is cool. And I've done it a few times actually. So
my wife was working here for 7 weeks. She found a house on February 28th. We closed on March 11th. I had the truck packed up on March 13th and drove out to Atlanta. It happened.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's so cool though, man. And Atlanta is a cool place. I have a couple of friends that live there, so I go, probably like once a year to visit them, and we hang out. And it's a really good time, and great food too, man, and entertainment.
That's fun.
It's a good time. So let's talk about million dollar collar. So you had the idea on your wedding day. So I'm assuming again, you were trying to get ready and the color wasn't working on the shirt. So what happened? How did the idea come about?
So if you on the video over my left shoulder is actually a photo from my wedding day. This is before I even said I do. You can see how sloppy my shirt looked. Brand new, freshly pressed shirt. Like biggest day of my life. We got married on the beach in Jamaica, so it was a really casual wedding. I hate wearing ties, and I just was adjusting all day. We flew the photographer down. He's a friend of ours. He took like 2,500 photos. So the next day we're flipping through photos. I'm like, damn, my shirt just looks like crap, and I hated it.
It drives me nuts too.
Came home from Jamaica. I cut open a shirt, and so for those on audio, think collar stay for a dress shirt, except 9 inches long, and it goes down the front of your shirt to prevent the front from collapsing under the weight of the collar. So I cut open where they meet, those two parts of the shirt meet, slid a piece of cardboard down both sides, showed my new bride. She was like, dude, I get it now. Let's go. And
that
she
is
was
so
100%
cool.
behind me. Yeah.
So, okay. So the next step, all right. So you came up with the idea. So what was the next proof of concept? So what did you do after that to make sure it's a great idea already. Now you're just telling me about it. And somebody who wears dress shirts all the time, but you still gotta, you gotta make sure that it's something that people want. So what was the next move after that?
So it took me 3 years to develop the material that we use and the design. So we were going to make our own shirt. We did a Kickstarter and everything, and we're like, okay, well, Kickstarter was super hot in 2014. Let's go out there. Let's throw a shirt up. A freaking sweatshirt company had just raised like $10 million or something crazy. So we're like, dude, we can sell a dress shirt. We're trying to do $40,000. I think we got to about 18,000. And the unequivocal feedback was, why are you trying to compete with all the brands, and why can't I upgrade the shirts I already own? So I went back to the drawing board, changed the design to be a universal fitting piece, and we've sold over 410,000 units. Fits in every single shirt everywhere on the planet, doesn't really matter. So it's a universal fitting piece. I ruined 100 shirts trying to figure it out over those 3 years because I was testing every single plastic I could find on the market. I would wash it, I would dry it, I would iron it, I'd throw it in, to the dry cleaner, and then they would press it and it would melt. And I found out that they flash press shirts at like 450 degrees. And so I needed a plastic-like material that could handle 700 degrees because I didn't want to ruin anybody's shirt. I mean, these things cost $2 a piece. I don't want to put it in your $50, $70, $200 shirt and have to replace it because it melted to the shirt. So I was very diligent in making sure that the product was right, and that's what it was. And so that's what took the longest amount of time.
I can believe that. That makes sense, because these are the little things that you don't think about unless you're the one, coming up with the idea and making it a proof of concept and all that good stuff. So Kickstarter, interesting. I've done one Kickstarter campaign and it was very successful, but I did it with a team for a product that already existed. It wasn't my own product. It was, something else. When you went to Kickstarter, what was the process like to, obviously you go in there, you set up your page. How did you get people how did you get traffic to the page to start raising that money? And how long did you have to do it?
So I had built a client base from my days in real estate, which, it wasn't a huge client base, but my screen printing company was live at that time. So I had a client base from that. And when people would come into the shop, I would talk about, hey, this is what I'm working on. What do you think? You wear dress shirts. What's your thought? And so we just started with that. But I'll tell you what, Kickstarter is a full-time job. I mean, we needed to spend a lot more time and get a lot more activity. But you know what? I thought we did pretty good. We did $18,000 on an unknown company and ordered a dress shirt. I mean, that's
amazing. And
I'm glad it went the way it went. I mean, most people would be like, oh, that was a failure. Dude, I didn't want to stock dress shirts. I mean, I have my single piece, I can fit $20,000 worth of inventory in a shoebox. 20 grand would take up half of my house. So of dress shirts. So I didn't want to have to. I'm glad it didn't end up being that way. And so it worked out for the best. We took and pivoted and listened to the customer. I mean, these were paying people. You know, when you talk to your friends, like, oh yeah, it's a great idea, but
They'll
they don't
lie
have
to
any
you.
money. They have no stake in the game. These guys were committing. I think we did $60 or $70 shirts out of the crack, and then we had, you know, bigger packages. So
Yeah.
people were putting real money into this, and so we listened to them. I mean, that was the real feedback.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, never. I mean, I love my friends, don't get me wrong, but I never listen. I never ask for their opinions or like listen to them, because it's
They
like
still give it though,
you know,
I bet.
they want to be supportive, you know, and they want to be like, no, man, I really like it. I think it's a great idea. So I learned a long time ago in my you know, teenage years not to listen to my friends.
Yeah.
But listen, 18 grand on Kickstarter by yourself, that is not a failure whatsoever, man. Because again, I was part of a Kickstarter project, and it had a huge team behind it. But the amount of work that goes into it to make it work, I mean, it's a lot of work. So 18 grand raise, that's, you know, you did the right thing. It's like, hey, I got 18 grand. People want this. I just got to make it happen the right way so I can bring it to them. And, you know, and make it happen. So once, you know, you got the Kickstarter done and you figure out the product and all that, the next step was to, I'm assuming, was to build a website, right?
Yep. We've been through probably 6 or 7 different versions of the website to date. Just trying to get the message across as clean as possible. But yeah, we went and built out a website. I have a partner, Steve. He's actually in this photo here. And he's really good with Shopify. So he built out all of our Shopify stuff. The way we look at our e-commerce is an employee, and a really cheap employee if you think about it. I mean, I think we spend $1,200 or $1,500 a month on our website with all of our automations and all of our follow-ups and all of our email stuff. And but $1,200 a month is an insanely cheap employee. It may be an expensive website when you think that Shopify starts at $79 a month, but
yeah,
to really get it to do what it needs to do, you got to invest the cash. And we slowly built that over time. We've got upsells and cross sells and all that stuff. And, you know, we test different things, but yeah, it's probably had 6 or 7 different websites.
That's what I wanted to get into. The website looks really good. So, you know, that's one thing that I explain to people and I teach on this channel all the time. It's like when you're launching a brand, you know, it doesn't stop after the first week. You know, for example, I launched a new brand back in October. And still to this day, we're making changes. Like, you know, we're watching videos. I tell people all the time, like, you know, go in there and watch at least 100 videos a month, you know, once you're established. And I can assure you, you're going to find a little bottleneck here and there that you miss somehow, or something breaks, you know, and you're not aware of it because you're not on there all day, every day. And so what was that process for you guys like? Because, I mean, was this your first e-com site, or, you know, you did the
I had a light one with nude clothing, you know, selling my shirts online. But this was definitely way more intense than what I had dealt with in the past. My problem is being creative is I see a shiny new thing. I'm like, oh, let's go try that. Let's go try that. And it's, you know, it ends up setting us back. But, you know, we test things out, and I like to find stuff and then tell my partner, dude, I just saw this thing. What do you think? You know, can it fit? And then he kind of vets those things, and he'll be like, well, here's 3 other options of that same kind of style. These have better reviews. And, you know, we'll test stuff out, and, you know, always do a backup before we add in anything, and then, you know, back it out if we have to.
So did you have like an aha moment when you were building the store where you found out like an app that literally is like, oh my God, I can't believe you can do this. Like, so easy. Like, was there an app that just like blew your mind type of deal? Because I find it sometimes, even I've been doing this for over a decade, and still to this day, every once in a while, something will come along. I'm like, how did I not know about this? You know, or like you make a little change, like, I don't know, the color of the add to cart button, and then your conversion rate goes up. You know, did you ever have any of those aha moments when you guys were starting out?
Yeah, you know, one of the companies, the biggest company that's on Shopify is Bold. And I'll tell you, they've got great ideas, but their apps are horrendous. They're so intertwined, and they eat up so much code. Like, they update, you know, you got to buy 2 or 3 apps to get one function to work. And then they update one of those apps, and then the other stuff breaks. And it's like, dude, they had to shut down for a month. I mean, it's bad. But, you know, originally when I started, I'm like, oh, you know, we're a new product. I wasn't really worried about it, you know, and I didn't know about cross sells and upsells. Once we added that unfortunately, it was from Bold, but I think our average order volume went from $14 or $16 to 34 almost overnight within 30 days or 60 days. And
That's
so now
awesome.
you're getting that traffic and it's like, okay, this is starting to beat it. We're over
Yeah.
40 now because we've added some higher ticket things, but it's getting there, and it's just playing with the things, and you don't want to overwhelm people. And we've got, 4 different things that can do a pop-up, and it's like, oh, you got to make sure that that's all clear. But it's a lot of going back. Every time you add something, it's like, okay, when are they going to get this email? When are they going to get this notification? Now we're getting into SMS and some of these other things. And it's like, well, you don't want to overburden people, but you also want to stay informed and top of mind. So
Sure.
it's a tough balance.
Yeah, that's everything I was going to get into. So once you got the store up and you figure out, you got it looking good, and it's like the modeling pictures look great. Now you have a store and you're like, okay, I need to bring traffic to it. You're a smart guy. So I'm sure you weren't like, okay, we have a website, we're going to be rich now. You're like, okay, we got to bring traffic to it. So what was your move right there? Where did you guys go for traffic right away?
Our product is very demonstrable. I can explain it to you all I want, but until you see our before and after or my wedding photo, you don't really get the full impact. So we said, let's not do Facebook ads. We went right to fashion influencers on YouTube. So we went to all the biggest guys and sent them product and, paid them to do a review of our product. But between the first 3 or 4 guys, they had over 1 million followers, maybe 2 million. So it went on. You got basically a 2 or 3 or 4 minute commercial where they're talking about it and why you want it. And that gave us instant credibility that a Facebook ad can never give you. So, we went right to the influencers. That was how we got out there.
Did you guys run any type of did you run any Facebook ads at all after that to take advantage of that warm traffic, or no?
I played with it a little bit. We're totally bootstrapped and self-funded, so there wasn't always cash to do, all those things that you would want to do right out of the gate.
Right.
So,
I can still hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we just we just went with those and just followed up the best that we could and built, using the automations within Shopify. I think we probably did that, but yeah, we didn't have any of the follower ads or any of that stuff that we should have probably had. But
did you guys build any, did you guys do, influencer marketing it's very, very powerful. We use it every day too, any type of influencers or YouTube personalities or anything like that, Instagram. Did you guys started working on SEO or anything like that at all after that, or no?
I knew a little bit about SEO going into it. I ended up hooking up with Stephen Spencer, who is like the king of SEO apparently, through a networking group that I was in. And, he gave me some really good tips. And some of them are as simple as every one of my photos, file names, describe everything because everything is searchable in Google. And most people don't know that. While we were in Los Angeles, we bought a yacht and started a yacht charter business, and that is a totally automated system. We haven't spent $1 on ads since April of last year, and we're one of the #1 booked boats in the marina. And I attribute it all to our SEO that we've done, because every single photo is LA, yacht charter, boat rental, luxury, all these keywords that are searching, and people, they're going to look. If you're going boating, you're definitely looking at photos. And so, we come up all over the place on those photos. And so definitely learned about SEO. And I try to have to kind of nudge my partner on that one, because he'd just like send me over a photo with, PNG 27 or something. I'm like, dude, we got to no. So I rename everything and put it back in the site and make sure. But even if you look up collar stay, on Google, we're in the top page of images, and we don't even sell. We sell collar stays, but we're not a collar stay. So
that is so cool. Yeah, that's one of the things that most people overlook when building a site. Naming the images properly so Google can index them, and then you're easier to find. And then so you got traffic to the site. Obviously, you're making sales and all that stuff. And then the next step is obviously your email marketing. Did you guys started taking advantage of your email list right away by sending campaigns weekly? Did you set up all your flows and all that stuff, or was that later on down the road?
That built over time. We got into MailChimp and started messing around with that. And then someone turned us on to Klaviyo. So we've been using that. We're at about 20,000 emails now. So we've got a really good base. And so, yeah, that's working really well now, but that took a minute for sure. And I ended up going back later and just, banging out a weekly non-salesy, here's a fashion kind of thing. I built an ebook. That was really, really well received. And that was a really cool where you get, I think it was seven style tips that most people won't see, but will improve your confidence. And so there were 7 things in there. And then on the 8th day, you got another email, and then like you got a few more tips that came that kept people kind of engaged. So I had a really cool like 2-week campaign that came out after you got the ebook. So, and that led to quite a bit of sales.
Yeah, because I mean, you're offering value. So when you're offering value, people, it's like, oh, okay, I kind of like the content from these guys. Let me check it out, and then they'll buy from you at some point. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So, all right. So where you guys are at, what's the next steps for the company? What do you think you're going to take it from here?
So a couple things that we are working on. One, we've been trying to license this technology to a major brand. We were like
really good
as
idea.
insanely close as we could be. And then the perfect storm of horrible things happened in October of 2019. And you know what one of them is.
Yeah.
One of the other ones is the brand is Express, which is very, very ironic. Is I actually got married in an Express shirt. So when I'm in this meeting in Columbus, we went through this whole meeting, like 45 minutes into a meeting, and they're like, "Oh, this is really great. I love it." Blah, blah, blah. I go, "Do you want the biggest piece of marketing gold you'll ever have?" I reached into my bag, I pulled out my wedding shirt, and I slid it across the table. And they're like, "Oh my God." Because it was an Express 1MX. And I'm like, look at how cool this would be to come full circle, and me standing on my wedding day. And now I'm sitting here, 6 or 7 years later, after coming up with this product, and I'm sitting across the table from you guys. So they had samples made, they were ready to go. Then it comes out that Lex Wexler, who is the owner, it was the #1 guy that funded Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh,
And
God.
then, yeah, so that was bad. And then it turned out that Victoria's Secret they were trying to sell off like half of Victoria's Secret, and then COVID hit. And I'm like, there was a 2.5 million unit test order that they were ready to place. I mean, we've sold 400,000 units. This is a 2.5 million unit test order. They sell 30 million dress shirts a year, or some crazy number like that. So we were like right there on the verge, and it just died. So
yeah,
we really want to land a brand, obviously.
No, I hear you, man. And actually, you know what? I own a few Express shirts. I've been buying them for a long time, and they're good shirts. But I want you to get in there. So, like, have you tried to talk to him again at all? Is the person still there that was your contact? I mean,
yeah. So they were on like they had like a special development team, and then it gets passed on to like the actual buyers and those people. So that development team had marketing people and design people and from all different departments, and they were 100% on board. But it gets patched out to New York, and then those guys make the final decision. And so he kept trying to push for us, but it was so much that we could do. But we follow up every once in a while. We'll shoot a message, just stay top of mind, and see if anything changes. Because our point right now is, if you're going to come out of COVID with any kind of leg up, you can't sell the same shirt you've been selling for the last 5 years. You need something that's really unique. And at the end of the day, almost 90% of men's dress shirts are worn without a tie most of the time. And no one is addressing this issue of the fact that there's no structure in the front of the shirt. I mean,
it drives me insane, dude. I'm telling you, like, it drives me insane.
Phillips Van Heusen, Calvin Klein, the Tommy Hilfiger, and all, they came out with a stretch collar. I was talking to them like days after I got my patent. They're like, "Oh no, we're doing this stretch collar thing." I'm like, "Why? Nobody wears a tie. What are you doing?" Like, that's how far behind and how slow these guys are to change. So it's a tough battle, but we'll get a licensing deal soon.
Yeah, and the worst is when and actually, you know what? Especially Express shirts, not all shirts, but a lot of I know this for a fact. Express shirts, the pointy, the edge of the collar, whatever you call that that part right here, it curls in after you get it dry cleaned more than a few times. So even if you have those little plastic things in there, it still doesn't work correctly.
Yeah,
and it drives me absolutely insane.
Yeah, I like the metal ones. They're stronger. They don't curl, but they're heavier. So that just means it's more weight that's going to collapse the collar and collapse the placket. So,
and that's why you got the solution right here, man. I love it. I love it.
So then the other thing that we're doing is, I've got the coolest shirt. So if you can see on your camera, See, it says Make-A-Wish in there. We can digitally print fabric. So I can take any logo, print it on fabric, and then we cut and sew those pieces into the dress shirt. So think of a nice hotel, restaurant, bar, car dealership, bank, any of that. Instead of having like a left chest embroidery, afterthought, trade show looking shirt, you can have this super clean, super subtle, very classy dress shirt with your logo built in. It's in the cuffs. It's inside the placket. It's insane.
Oh,
And
dude,
the quality's off the charts. I mean, they're amazing.
My best friend, who's a financial advisor, will love that. All those guys love their initials in there somewhere, or the logo on the shirts for the suits.
Well, it's a 50 shirt minimum, so it's got to be a company. It's got to be somebody that's, you know, a brand. But we're talking to a bunch of wealth management guys. It's like, imagine giving that out as a gift.
That's
with
really
a really
cool.
subtle logo, and your client is walking around. They're like, dude, that's a great shirt. Where'd you get it? I got it from my wealth management guy. Let me tell you how awesome he is.
That's really
That's
cool.
going to get you more clients. Remember when I talked about how the bars shouldn't sell shirts for $20?
Yeah.
This is how my mind thinks.
Genius, man. It's super genius. Like, I mean, I never had to do that, but it's a genius idea that I can't believe more people are not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense. The other thing that I noticed that you have here on the site, that I always roll my sleeves up, always 90% of the time, unless I'm wearing a suit, then they're down. But going out, normal casual dinner or whatever, they're always rolled up. And I noticed that you have the flex cuff here on the site. Tell me a little bit about that.
Look, I never go without them. It's on, if you could see on the camera. So it's an elastic band that connects from the button to the buttonhole. That way, instead of rolling your cuff all the way up, you can keep that contrast on the outside. I haven't touched my cuffs once in this whole interview. Yeah. And they just stay right there. They come in 6 different colors. They're amazing.
That is so cool, man. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rob,
then
listen.
We also have,
go ahead.
One last thing. We do have an entire marketplace of branded shirts. So Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Van Heusen, from like $30 to $100. We have a huge selection of dress shirts on the website that I've bought. We've sewn $1 Million Collar into, and then you can just go and buy and wear. So it's a brand you know, it's a size you know, it's colors you love, and you can experience $1 Million Collar right off the bat.
Yeah, you got Michael Kors, you have Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein. You got all that good stuff. William Mahoney. Yeah, man, this is good. If you're like me, where you just know your brands and your sizes, you don't have to worry about it. Just order the size that you know fits you. It's amazing. So, listen, Rob, we're out of time, man. But I really truly enjoyed our conversation. I love the site. I mean, I think it's amazing. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to throw another product out there. You're actually solving a pain, a solution to a pain, that's why you're successful. Guys, check out the site. It's $1millioncollar.com. And Rob, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, shoot an email to, I'm Rob at $1 Million Collar. I'm on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram, although we're not overly active on there, and Facebook. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn or Rob at $1 Million Collar if you got any questions. I'm happy to help anybody who's in the process and in the fight.
Yeah, and go to the site and get your shirt, man. Well, listen, Rob, thank you so much, man. Until next time, I appreciate you being here today. And all the links will be in the description, so you guys will be good there.
Thank you.
All right, thanks again, Rob. Thank you.